Okay, should we start? Hello, good afternoon. I am Chris Tardáguila, the Associate Director at Pointer, at the IFCN at Pointer. I'm super happy to tell you that this is a live session. We are broadcasting this Global Fact Checks at the website, pointer.org, and also at globalfact6.com. So welcome those that are watching us through the internet. We're starting this panel. It's about collaboration among fact checkers. It's getting very common to get fact checkers to work together, right? And it's good, I think. It's going to be a super informal chat. I cannot be formal, as you have noticed, I think. I will start. We have kind of discussed how it's going to be. We're going to talk about 4 or 5 different collaborative projects that have been have worked together for the last 2-3 years. And I could start a little bit. I'm talking about a little bit what I've done in this topic. Back in 2016, yes, I'm kind of old. I was invited by Univision, which is the Spanish-speaking channel in the U.S., to join them. And Ronnie Rojas is not here, unfortunately, but he invited some Latin American fact checkers to go to Miami to fact check I think it was the last debate with Trump and Hillary. And guess what? It was amazing. It was the first time I participated in a pool of fact checking. And well, we divided ourselves. We were 11 people, and we spoke Spanish. And I was the only Portuguese speaker in the room, but I kind of managed myself to hear in English and fact check in Spanish and, well, write something that was not Portuguese. And when I got back home, I was so excited with the idea that it was really strong. We got stronger every time we worked together. And when I arrived back home, it was October, right? November 26, 2016. And back home, we were having local elections in Rio, and we were electing our mayor. So I called some of our fact checkers, partners in Brazil, Aos Fatos, and by that time, Truco from Agência Pública was still up and running. And we did a pool also to fact check our candidates for Rio. And yeah, it was awesome. And I felt like, yay, this can be done, and this can be done really often. And this is how I got kind of involved, and I fell in love with the idea that there are sometimes competitions needs to be dropped down. We need to forget that we're competing for page views, clicks, and our brands need to be put it aside. Information needs to come first, right? So, and from 2016 to today, I have managed to participate in some other projects. And this year, I had the great opportunity to help building Fact Check EU, which Pauline is going to talk about right now, right? And I'm in the opposite position right now. I am at the IFCN, while Baybars is trying to get money from funders and getting grants for us. One of my jobs is to create and plan and help you all plan some new collaborative projects. And the idea of this panel is to bring up what are the best practices? What should we do to have good collaborative projects? And what are the mistakes we've done so far that we should avoid, right? So we don't step on the same stone again. So I brought these wonderful people here today to hear 10 minutes for each, and I am going to be Alexius again. Hey, Alexius, if you're there. And, well, we'll start with Giovanni. He's going to talk about Zommer, right? And just keep going. You have 10 minutes. Let's go.
Thank you. Thank you, Chris. Hello, everybody.
Is your mic on? I don't think your mic is on.
I should put that on. Yeah. And it also works. Okay. Hello, everybody. Thank you, Chris. I'm Giovanni Zagni, and I'm the director of Pagella Politica. Pagella Politica is the only Italian fact-checking website dedicated to political fact-checking mainly. And we take Italian politics seriously, which is something that we are apparently the only ones doing that, because I don't know if you remember, but you may remember Silvio Berlusconi, who was clearly an apprentice comedian. You can see that from this photo. And that happened more or less 10 years ago. Now, things haven't changed so much, since the main force in the Italian parliament nowadays is a political movement founded by an actual comedian. You can see here the comedian during one of his shows. So we keep taking these things seriously, not only in Italy, but also at the international level. In the past few months, we've been part of two big cooperative efforts. The first one just came to an end, and that is FactCheck.EU, but Pauline is going to talk about that, so I won't delve deeper into that. The second one, and the one that I'm going to talk to you about more today, is called Zommer. And it is a project still in its beginnings, but with a lot of potential. So the Zommer project stands somehow for Social Observatory for Disinformation and Social Media Analysis. It started in November 2018 and is projected to run through 2021 with funding from the European Commission through a research and development grant through the Horizon 2020 program. So it has many objectives, and it aims not only at the fact-checking community in the stricter sense, but also at academics, journalists, experts, social media professionals, and the like, more generally to the wider community interested in disinformation. This wider community is reflected also in some of its objectives, like studying and developing an impact assessment tool, and establishing two national centers for excellence on online disinformation in Italy and in Denmark. These objectives are the focus of our partners. So T6 in Rome, Lewis University, also in Rome, and Aarhus University in Denmark. What we are in charge of as Politica, for a technological platform that you can see here, which is called Truly Media, and which is developed by our Greek partner, ATC. It works a little bit like sending questions directly to European authorities, like, for example, the most important, most famous one is Eurostat, but not only that. And this can help get quick replies when it is needed, which is, of course, time is a very important factor here. And sending questions directly to European authorities, like, for example, the most important, most famous one is Eurostat, but not only that. And this can help get quick replies when it is needed, which is, of course, time is a very important factor here. And I must stress out that Truly Media is not a new tool. It has been developed in the past few years in cooperation with Deutsche Welle, the German public international broadcaster, which is already using it on a regular basis. And now it is the tool that was chosen by the European Commission at the moment of assigning the grant as the tool around which building the fact-checking building community part of the project. It is also important to stress out at this point that nobody from the European Commission has access to the work done on the platform, nor to the materials uploaded there, nor to any kind of data related to it. So this project is funded by the European Commission, but the European Commission has no editorial influence on it. It has full editorial autonomy. This is a point, of course, very important to stress. So we have this fine tool, and now we have to make it work, right? So far we have a few promising achievements for the project, which started 7 months ago, as I told you. And we have organized an event in Milan last March in Italy that was aimed at mainly at European fact-checkers, and and we are now, after that event, we are now in, so to say, in the boarding phase of the project, in the sense that we are receiving interest, declaration of interest by the organization to join the platform, and we are evaluating them. On the editorial side, we are getting started more or less right now in these days and weeks to work on the stories. So we weren't able to publish anything before the European election, but Fact-Check EU was in full swing, so there was also less need to it. And so I don't have any to show you today, but I am confident that I will have plenty next year. We have presently around 15 organizations and that are on the platform, and we are still receiving requests. The last one was from a journalist from Cyprus 10 days ago, a week ago. So next year, no articles, but, this year no articles, but next year for sure it will. I will tattoo them on me. But we have also organized a series of webinars with Eurostat, where experts from the statistical service have presented how to use their database at its best. I personally think that it makes a lot of sense to try to have European fact-checkers, and not only European, because we have received, for example, also requests from Pakistan, to have these European fact-checkers in one place to try to work together on topics, issues, stories that could be of common interest, right? So we had recent examples of stories traveling all through Europe, like that one last November about immigrants allegedly stopped at the Croatian border with MasterCards paid by Soros. That was an hoax that we saw traveling all through Europe, through different countries. So it went through the Netherlands, France, Austria, and finally it reached Italy after 4 days in the very same form as it was everywhere. It would be cool, I think, in the next future to have a place where you can go to see if somebody else has spotted a story that is getting steam at the European level, and that could be in some way where some work could be done on that. So I invite everybody interested in checking the website, which is disinfoobservatory.org, this one. And feel free to ask me any question about this project. We will also talk about this in this panel. And see you next year with my tattoo with the stories.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you, Giovanni. Questions at the end, all right? We do the questions at the end. Okay? So, Yvonne, do you want to stand up? Do you want to sit down? What do you do? Yep, we have to change it. Let's change the presentation. Okay. Okay, cool. You did it. There. Where is it? Yeah, this is clear. Yeah, great. So here's Yvonne from the Philippines, our cool teacher. Let's go. Let's hear.
It's a pleasure to be with you and to share our experience about at Check.PH or Check.PH. Check.PH is the first collaborative fact-checking initiative in the Philippines, and the journey was really very, very difficult. The idea to do collaborative fact-checking started right after the 2016 presidential elections. Many have described the Philippines as patient zero of the modern disinformation era. Our presidential elections preceded that in the United States, and we saw Rodrigo Duterte not just using traditional platforms for electoral disinformation or propaganda, but also invested heavily in social media to spread disinformation and saw this divisiveness that left a highly polarized society. So he won elections, and even back then, fact-checking initiatives were begun by separate media organizations, by the newsrooms. Today, we have both Rappler and Verifiles as verified signatories of the International Fact-Checking Network. But there are other newsrooms that have been doing fact-checking, either on a spotty or sporadic basis to sustained fact-checking, like Verifiles and Rappler. But the importance of collaborative fact-checking really hit us hard because we saw state involvement in the spread of disinformation. When Rodrigo Duterte became president, of course, by then he had relied on an architecture of network disinformation to come to office. The key players there, his campaign strategists, the key opinion leaders, the social media influencers, as well as the troll farms, the bot farms, the like farms, and whatever farms you want to have to amplify social disinformation, were also recruited to government. So that made it really dangerous. So there were attempts to get newsrooms to collaborate. Among those who took the lead, was trying to take the lead was Rappler. But in the Philippines, the media environment is highly or fiercely competitive. You can hardly imagine, let's say, the same television network or different television networks partnering on a similar project. The few occasions that they would partner is during elections, but they would go for non-competitors as partners. So the biggest network would partner perhaps with the biggest daily, but you cannot have the biggest network partnering with another big television network. So that was really the challenge. I mean, there were several exploratory discussions on how to go about collaborative fact-checking, but they couldn't see eye to eye. So sometime last year, about exactly a year ago, at the Trusted Media Summit for Asia Pacific, organized by Google in Singapore, this gathered journalists from different parts of Asia, from Indonesia, from India, from the Philippines. The contingent from the Philippines came up to, I was there, came up to me, as well as a few other colleagues from the University of the Philippines, to say that, you know, we are willing to collaborate. We're willing to do joint fact-checking if. The big if was, if it's not led by another newsroom. So the rivalry was, so it was like we needed to address that problem. Now that left me in a predicament because I wear two hats. I've been teaching journalism on a full-time basis since 2006. After, I'm not that young. I started as a journalist in 1981 when Marcos was still president. So in 2006, I decided to go full-time teaching. So I was wearing that hat, but in 2008, I co-founded Verifiles. And as you know, Verifiles, for those who I've met, like Pauline in the past, when I was here before, I was the project lead of Verifiles Fact Check. So that left me in a predicament because if I stayed with Verifiles, then I would not be perceived as neutral because I am a fact checker. I come from a media organization. So I had to take off my hat as a Verifiles project director, the fact check project director, and together with my colleagues at the University of the Philippines Department of Journalism, we convened or we organized or we gathered newsrooms from the biggest newsrooms from the country. So here we see the role of media as a neutral ground to bring newsrooms together as a possibility. And then we had to ask them exactly how do you want to collaborate? After examining different models, CheckFacta from Indonesia, Verificado from Mexico, Comprova from Brazil, they told us we just want to collaborate for the 2019 midterm elections that took place in May. It was very clear just for the elections. And they said that we want to retain the option, one, to fact check independently, and secondary would be just to collaborate or do joint fact checking or cross checking, which is a model in other countries. But we said it was good enough. Just getting them to agree to partner is good enough for us. And they said that they were willing to share their content in a website. good enough for us, and other social media. But there were legal concerns, and I don't know if this would apply to your countries. One of the things that they were concerned about was the copyright. They wanted to make sure that they retain copyright, but they were willing to let the public have free use under a Creative Commons with attributions license once they put it in the repository or the website. They also wanted to make sure about legal liability. They said that just make sure we don't get sued, right, over a fact check put out by someone else that appears in Check.PH. So we addressed that problem. We had a lawyer, full-time lawyer, working with us all this time. You're looking at elections that involve almost 18,000 positions. So the partnership had to be covered by a memorandum of understanding, a legal document. It was accompanied with a 7-page implementing guidelines that spelled out the protocols. It also provided the creation of committees, a technical committee to work on the platform, an oversight committee, and this is important because this is where they made sure that they adhere to the standards of fact-checking. But part of the work of the oversight committee would be, in case there were fact checks on a similar claim that had different conclusions, then that is where the academics will step in to examine why there was there were different ratings, and to explain, not to say that who is right or wrong, but just to explain. So in the end, we were able to gather partners, 14, all of them, 3 from academe. All 3 universities are the biggest, they're the leading universities from the Philippines. We had 11 media partners, and we were able to get support from the Facebook Journalism Project, Mitan, as well as 2 local organizations. Some strategies and tools. We, of course, had to hold a boot camp for all the partners, 100 representatives, and had smaller boot camps. For the tools, we made sure that all the partners, and these are all free, we made sure that all the partners had at their disposal a Check platform, which was used by Cross-Check France, Verificado. I think Sweden also used that. And then for social media monitoring, we use Facebook's CrowdTangle, both the dashboard and the live displays. And to spread, of course, content was pushed to our website, our Facebook page, our Twitter account, and of course we communicated mainly through the use of Slack and Google. What is probably more interesting is on election day itself, we brought together the partners, at least those who were available, to an election day pop-up newsroom where we monitored disinformation that went viral live. Let me just show you some figures very quickly, because Cristina asked me to share key performance indicators. Did we meet our targets? The target should have been like at least 168 fact checks, because we had agreed that for baby steps, maybe just 1 weekly output per partner is good enough. That means that for a 12-week campaign period with 14 partners, we should have produced 168 fact checks. For that particular period, we produced 131. We're 37 fact checks shy, not so bad. But I think what's important is to measure the success is, and this is where we need to work harder on in the future, is the output per partner. You would see that they should have produced 12, but only 3 met or exceeded the targets, led by the University of the Philippines, where I am from. And of course, the trained fact checkers, Raptor and Verifiles. If we look at how collaborative we were, it's a bit problematic. Is that time? No, okay. Almost, okay. I'm almost done. The degree of collaboration, you will see that out of the 131 that we produced, only 13 were multiple or joint fact-checking. It's a very low figure. But on election day, when we had the pop-up newsroom, it jumped, actually. We had 32 fact-checks or articles. 10 of them were joint fact-checking. So it means that it's really good to bring the fact-checkers together in one place and have them help each other. Might be of interest to you. We most of the claims were from social media, but we did quite a sizable, we also have a sizable number from the candidates. In the Philippines, WhatsApp is not big. It's still Facebook where you have most of the disinformation lodged in. The initial assessment, we did this last Friday, was the problem is it's the way newsrooms cover are still pretty much like very traditional, the way they cover election, horse race, he said, she said. They said that probably they should have dedicated more people, more time to fact checking, and gotten editors who could run the fact checks or supervise the fact checkers more closely in the decision making for Check.PH. And there's one thing that they hope collectively, they said probably could have helped them a lot, is if they had been trained not just how to fact check, but how to set up fact checking teams and direct the coverage. So it's something that's new to them. In conclusion, for a maiden effort, the consensus was it ain't that bad. We're off to a good start. These are some direct quotes. We've done a lot. By we've done a lot, they mean it's for this first time we're able to show that media organizations can come together and work together. But what's more important is the message that's sent to the public and public figures that we're willing to work together, especially if it's to counter disinformation. And maybe from the lessons that we've gathered, we'll do a better job next time, especially for the 2022 presidential elections.
Super
Thank you very
nice.
much.
Congrats, Yvonne. Wonderful work, and I think we have the best practices right there. I mean, she just did the list of it. It's pretty cool. So, Pauline, you were quoted like, what, 1,500 times already? So take the stage and talk about fact-checking you. Okay, yeah, sure. Sorry. Ow! Chalk.
Yeah, it happened to me too.
Okay. What did I do? Okay.
What are you looking for?
Because I needed to. Okay, we're ready to go. Sorry for that. Let's go. Pauline Moullot.
Hi. So I'm Pauline. I work for CheckNews at Libération in France, but actually I'm going to present Fact Check EU. So Fact Check EU was a project launched at the start of the project. It was the IFCN and Libération, because last year we won Fact Forward, and with Fact Forward we wanted to do a collaborative project. So we thought the best way to do it was to do it for the European election, and IFCN also wanted to do a collaborative project for the European election. So we just joined forces all together. And so it was 19 media from all over Europe. All of them were IFCN signatories from 13 countries and 13 languages. So it was a challenge. And it lasted for 10 weeks. It was supposed to last for 12 weeks, but we were late a little bit. So until the election day. So the idea, my slides are not really good looking. I'm sorry about that. The idea was to work together and to see if 19 different news organizations could fact check one election. And we also wanted to analyze how misinformation crosses border, which means like if we could see a hoax going from Spain to Italy to France and analyze how it does that. And we also wanted to share all of our work and publish it in only one place. So we built the common website. So Libération, with the Fact Forward grant, developed a platform, the website called Chequeado. And thanks to the IFCN, we had one project coordinator who, like, if he hadn't been here, I think there would be no project. So he's not here today, but we're thinking of him. And the IFCN fund budget for translation also, and a lot of other development things. So, and there were also two important things that we wanted to do at the start, but you will see later that it didn't work. We wanted to involve our readers based on the model CheckNews works. Like CheckNews as a fact-checking organization, we only respond to our readers' question and make articles out of it. We don't pick our topics, our articles. But actually, this didn't work. So it was the core of the idea, and it didn't work at all. I will tell you why. And we also wanted to be able to take each other article and publish it on our own website. Let's say Pagella wrote an article, it was translated into English and published on Chequeado, but Libération could also translate it into French and publish it on Libération. But this didn't really work as well.
Bottom, yeah.
So how did it work? Oh, I just said that already. So everything, like for an article to be published, it had to be translated into English first. Like you wouldn't have an article only in French or only in Spanish or only in Italian. It was always translated into English, and then you could ask for it to be translated in your own language. So it was on the platform and on your website. Almost all of us, we decided that it was easier to talk to each other via email, so it looks like from another era. But after thinking of it, we realized that we had too many channels already. Like we all have Slack, and we all have WhatsApp, and we all have like many ways to talk, but actually the more efficient and the easier one is just email to talk to everyone at the same time. And so that worked thanks to the project coordinator that could talk to anyone. He talked to everyone by phone first, like before we launched, and he was able to make sure everyone was on the same page. No. So the challenge is, like the biggest challenge was that we are 19 media, and 19 media from different countries, so it's more difficult to make people react and interact and work together. Like the biggest number you are, the more difficult it is, especially if you're from another country and you don't have the same difficulties. Even if it was on one topic, European election, it was not that easy. And it's also because the European election, we were wondering before we launched, and we had the answer after that, are the European election interesting enough for the audience? Will there be really misinformation? Like people were telling, like the European Commission was all crazy, like you should do something, there will be misinformation, Russia is going to interfere. Was it really going to happen? And like also we all have our website with our own audience, but is it easy to make people go on a new website that has no audience and that starts from nowhere? And then the most important challenge was the time. Like, we don't have time. We know that. Fact checkers and journalists are always running after time, so will people take enough time to work together and collaborate? So we published, this is not in the slide, but in the 10 weeks, we published 19 93 articles in English, and then I didn't count how many of them were translated. So it's not that big, but it's okay. No, it's 93, no? Yeah, yeah, but... Okay, we see. So, like, what we... Yeah, more than 90.
More than 80.
So first we learned that we could be like more reactive when there was actually a hoax crossing borders. Like for the first person, like sometimes you could see someone from Spain who told you, like, have you seen that? You hadn't seen it, but then a few minutes later you can see it arriving in France. So when you speak to each other on a daily basis, it's easier to see that a viral hoax is happening. And another lesson that we learned is that the bigger the news event, the more efficient the collaboration is. And like we realized that on a topic that has nothing to do with the European election, it was the Notre Dame fire. So it's only a French topic, but we could see that it had a global repercussion, of course, and we could see all the hoaxes coming from many other countries. So French people started working on it. And then it's the project coordinator again that could see that it was like everybody was working on the same subject at the same time, and he could write articles like with all our fact checks in one place. And it was important to have him because in our own each one in our own newsroom, we didn't have time to check what the other ones were doing. But he could have this global view on what was happening and how to help us. And we also learned, it's anecdotal, but like when you're working all together, one person is enough, meaning that if you send an email, sometimes you just need one person to respond to start like a big conversation going. And you just need this person to respond in like the first few minutes or the first hour, and you're sure you will have answers and everybody will get involved. And if you just miss the train and nobody responds, then it's over. But so, as I told you before, we had some limits with this project. Like it didn't work as well as we expected to, and we can analyze well why. Because so it might seem paradoxical compared to what I said before, and when you talk about a collaborative project, but there was actually a lack of communication. And this lack of communication happened before the project started. Like we realized everyone was not on the same page and didn't expect the same thing of the project and didn't want as much to be involved. So you should really like be ready, and like even when you think everything is clear for everyone, actually it's not. So you should always write everything down and just don't hesitate to ask more questions. Because yeah, we had some problems with that, not very big ones, but we realized not everybody expected the same thing of the website. There were also bugs on the website, and like you know, when you're developing something, it won't work right away. But when you have only 10 weeks, like the slightest bug, and like if you are 2 hours late, it's actually a big thing. So like, and there are some problems because like we are journalists and we work with developers and tech, and we don't always understand what they say and how they work, and we get impatient, and they don't understand why we are impatient. So you should really have a great team of tech guys who understand what you do and try to understand what they do too. The other problem, like it was really ambitious, but translation, having everything translated into English before we published them on the website, it was really good because it enabled like everyone could go on the platform and read any article they wanted. But at the same time, it took a lot of time. So like when you had like something very urgent, it couldn't be on the platform because it took at least 2 days to be translated into English, 1 day at the best. And then if you wanted to translate it in another language, it was again 2 or 3 more days. So you couldn't have really hard news on the website. And there was also so the content sharing, I was talking about that first. Like for us, it was really important to say that everyone could use each other's content. But when you're really doing it, you realize that even though like we thought being all IFCN signatories would solve the problem, because we're supposed to have all the same methodology and like respond to criteria, but actually we don't really work the same way. So even if article looks really good and it fits all criteria for fact check, sometimes if you want to use it, you realize, oh, but I wouldn't have done it, and actually you end up not doing it, not using it. So the only ones who shared each other, like some other people's articles on a regular basis, are Pagella Politica, and I really thank you. Thank you. But like even Libération, we didn't use it because it took a lot of time to understand and like put it in our way of writing. So we were the one who thought it was really important and who really wanted to do it, and in the end, it took us too much time and we didn't have this time, so we didn't do it.
3 minutes, Pauline.
Really?
3 minutes.
And then, yeah, so I talked about this before, like the European election. Also, the Q&A part didn't work as well because only CheckNews actually did it because we are used to it, but it's really hard to convince other people to change their way of working. Like sometimes we would ask someone, oh, did you see this question? And they would say, yeah, and give us the answer by email, but actually not publish an article. And so it's normal because everyone has their own way of working and they just want to do their fact check. They want the way they are used to it. And so we just gave up. Like we tried for like maybe 10 days or 2 weeks and decided that collaboration was more important than this feature. And then, yeah, European elections are not the most interesting period. Like there was not a lot of misinformation. And they are actually a national election. Like the debates are national matters. Like the fact checks we did, most of them were on national political figures and national debates, and you didn't have many really pan-European problems. So yeah, and so we had like, Chris did a small survey after 1 month of launching, and you could see that like everybody was pretty much on the same page, and like everybody said we are not involved enough. We could get more involved, but actually 1 month later nobody did because it just took too much time, and like everybody said they wanted, yeah, you can read this. And so it just still, oh yeah, there are other questions, sorry. So yeah, you could see that everybody was on the same page. Like people thought the election hasn't started and my country is busy with something else. Like we had the Notre Dame fire, we had many other problems in France and in other countries said yes. Yet, everybody said they wanted to keep collaborating. So we haven't talked about this yet, so I don't know what will happen, but I think just having an email listserv is really useful because we can ask each other questions, and sometimes collaboration is just that. You help each other out. Yeah, so I hope I didn't sound too pessimistic because it was, it was still a good experience because we could see that there is a will for collaboration to keep going. And then I will just end with a few lessons, like even when you think everyone is on the same page, everyone is not. So just always double check. There are never too many emails back and forth. And even when you think you're ready, you're not. So be ready to be late and just have some last minute bugs. And like the most important thing is like remember that people don't have time and you should make things as easy as possible. Like I think, and I'm completely responsible, we were maybe a little too ambitious. It was right to try, but it was too ambitious to have something really working with 19 media. And then pick the right moment for collaboration. Maybe at another time it could have worked, but I think European election, even if it's interesting because you have European partners and so you don't have competition as you can have when you have a collaborative project in one country, because we are not in competition. It's no one has the same interest and audience, so it's another challenge. So I think we will be better next time.
Thank you, Pauline. Now Laura, she's on the project right now. Reverso is up and running. Yep. Just go ahead and tell us, how is it going? You gotta be fast. Go fast. ¿Has podido? No. Ese. Ow. It's okay. There.
Okay, then I'm going to be fast, okay? Thank you for being here, not to go to workshops and to stay there.
Yeah.
I'm Laura. I'm the Executive Director and Editor-Chief of Chequeado. Mm-hmm. No.
Down, debajo.
Okay. Then Chequeado is a non-for-profit organization working in Argentina since 2010. And we are trying to improve the quality of public debate or raise the cost of flying. And this is some data context of our country. The most important perhaps is almost 40% of the people trust in news and media outlets most of the time. And then we have more people that don't trust on the media than the people that trust. And a lot of people get informed by internet. This is from the Reuters report. Okay, then this year we have presidential elections in Argentina, and we decided to make something separate from Chequeado. We decided to make a collaborative project with a lot of partners, and I listened to my colleagues, and there are many learns that you said that we try to apply in the project. I'm not saying that we are not going to fail or go challenge, but as we study a lot from the other experience, there's some things that we already did. And then the new project called Reverso in Spanish is the other hand of something, and then is information against misinformation. That's the slogan. And we've been fighting from Chequeado, working with misinformation since 2014. There were no Trump there. There were not Bolsonaro. There were not Oxford Dictionary saying fake news or post-truth was the word of the year. But we are finding in the social network in Argentina content that we didn't know who spread it, and we can't use our traditional fact-checking methodology because we don't have the possibility to contact the person to ask where the evidence of your claim. Then we start doing this debunking in 2014, and we realized that what Peter said today or this morning, it is a really complex phenomenon. We are a big organization in terms of what other organizations are, but we are a small organization in terms of what problem or phenomenon we are trying to solve. Then, since the beginning, we start not only working on the content, also with the community, trying to develop with our education program, develop critical thinking in the other people or in the society to be more awareness and to help us, not only sharing our content, but also telling us where the conversations were that are not necessarily the same conversation that journalists got or public leaders or the people that we are used to talk about. Then that's we've got it in mind from the beginning. And then what we decided to do is to create a network with a lot of different media with, when I say a lot of different media, they are big companies with hundreds of journalists, and we have also small companies with, or not companies, non-profit with 2 journalists. We have TV channels, we have radios, we have digital media, and we have newspaper involved. And as my colleague said, that's a really hard work, at least in countries where the political polarization is big, And there are a lot of journalists or media that don't want to even talk with that one that is in the other editorial position. Then if you are planning to create a collaborative project, one of my recommendations is start and think all the partnership gonna take you some months, and not some days, not some weeks, some months. In our case, it was 5 months taking coffee with different directors of different media, trying to convince me to be on board. And we are, now we've got, we create, now we are more than 110, we are 113 today, but we continue growing the partnerships. And as I told you, there are media that are aligned or more aligned with the government, and media that are just in the opposite. And obviously that, as you can imagine, is important for the credibility of the project. And then, as you know, because you also are, we are nerds. Then before starting to plan this project, we study all what others do, and then we look for cross-check, and we said, okay, they did well to install skills and to get capacity buildings in other newsrooms, and not only focus on what we are going to produce during that period, but also focus on what they are going to have after the project finished in their day-by-day work. From Verificado, we love the viralization that the project got, and then we assume that we are not going to have just text, but we need to have videos, GIFs, memes, and other things to be viral, really viral, and not a kind of viral. And from Comprova, on the opposite on Philippines, in Argentina, as in Brazil and India, WhatsApp, it's one of the most important ways of communication, and also ways to the people to be informed, or not necessarily well informed, sometimes in a lot of cases bad informed, but everyone is there in WhatsApp. Then we learn all the challenge that Comprova got in Brazil to know what is happening in real time in WhatsApp, to try to check, verify that. And then we're gonna work with the people that work in Brazil, and also with the guys from Pop-Up that can be working or trying to work in India. And we don't have a good solution. We have a first starting solution that we are going to to try, and I'm going to tell you more next time we see. And from election land, the idea of thinking information as a service also, and not just being verifying hoax, but also giving information that can be useful for the voters or the citizens. And then we launched last week, and the goals I already told you, but is to leave capacity building in the media. Argentina is a federal country. We got 24 provinces, and then we made trainings in 12 of the 24 provinces. We already trained 327 journalists face-to-face in a one-day workshop. And now all the producers that are going to be 55 of that 113 are taking an online course of 6 days, and if they don't pass that course, they can't be producers. We explain everyone that we don't have time to lose. We need to be quicker. We have to react to the hoax. When Pauline said the translation needs 2 days, 2 days is impossible if we want to have that reach that we are looking for. Then what we said clearly for all of them is you need to learn how to do this before we start. Then during June, just AFP and Chequeado, that we are already making fact-checking, are producing. And the rest of the partners just publish exactly what we publish. They can't even change a comma. They can't. If they change it, we call them and we ask them to put it again. And we did it. We started 1 week ago, and 4 of them made things wrong, and we call them and they correct them. And I'm not talking about small media, I'm talking about the most relevant digital media in the country. The other, as I told you, is to reach more people with that publication simultaneous, to have technology as allied, and not to have technology putting a kind of new barrier to enter. We decide not just old-fashioned, as Pauline said, with an email, but more or less, we're gonna just use a Trello for partners that are gonna be producer, and another Trello for partners that are publisher, just to know the subjects of the days. And we decided to do that because as we were teaching them a lot of things about the methodology, about how the tools they can use and all that, we said if we have to add also to teach them to use a technology they don't know, perhaps we're going to fail because they are not going to be logged in that. In Argentina, most of the journalists don't use Slack. And the platform were, in general, on Slack. And then we decided to use just Trello. That is really, really easy. And also email. They receive every day an email with the summary of the articles for the day. And in the mid-afternoon, they receive these are the articles. Today, after 7 a.m. in the morning, you can just publish it. And if you are print, you can do it before in your print version, but in your digital version, you have to do it at 7. And it's working more or less good. Okay, then 2 ways to be part, really clear to them. If they want to be allies, partners, and publish the content, they have to make a training of 6 hours. If they don't do it, they can't be. They can say they are part of this network. They can reproduce the content in the same way we send them. And also, and perhaps this is the most important and the most difficult to measure the impact we're going to have, is if they made a mistake, or they decide to publish for clickbait something that is a hoax or a misinformation, they should correct it before we publish. And then we are sure that some of the most relevant misinformation in the past year were because one of the main media republished it, not just because they were in the social network. Then that's something important. They accept to do it. We put update and not correction. And I think that other of the lessons that I can recommend you is we are making in the journalist or media scenario the first steps of collaboration. We are not used to. We are all the time in the past competing. Then we decide to put the word update and not correction to be more friendly with them. It is a correction. They should change the article in the same link, and they should explain it. But they accept it because they know, okay, it's an update. Then be empathic with the others in that way to get them on board is another recommendation that I can tell you of these months is trying them to be in the project. And then the allies, as I told you, not only they have to go to the face-to-face training, they also got this course online. That is an intensive course that got 3 hours a day of dedication. Then they are going to have more or less 25 hours of training before they can start producing. And the other thing that it was challenging it was how can we manage to recognize the credits, the author of each piece, without make the competitor not to republish that article. Then the solution that we find is every media publish the content with the name by Reverso team. If Chequeado produce it, AFP produce it, or any of the partners produce it, it's gonna say Reverso team. But if you go to the website of Reverso, there you're going to find the face, the name of the journalist, and also the logo of the media that produced it. I don't have time? Okay. Then, okay, I'm going to... And this is other challenge, is we decide not to we decide to let them free to publish what articles they want to, but as I told you, they can't edit. And period, Chris asked us, it's going to be, I think, the longest. It's going to be 6 months, because we have primary elections in August, elections in October, and second round in November. Then we're going to be working during 6 long months. This is one of the trainings in one province. This is other. These are the organizations that are calling the rest to join us, and IFP, First Draft, and Pop-Up Newsroom. First Draft help us, especially in the online course. AFP works with Chequeado in all the editing. Every piece is going to have at least 2 editors, one from Chequeado and one from IFP. And Pop-Up Newsroom help us with all the workflow. We have the support of all these, Google, Facebook, WhatsApp, and Illuminate. And these are the social networks you to start follow us. It's in Spanish, sorry, but perhaps it's useful. Thank you.
Super, Laura. So yeah, we need to super hurry. I have like best practices really fast that I wrote down for this conversation. I could easily tweet this out very soon, and I will just read this, and then we can have like 1 question, 2 or 3 questions very quickly, because Baybars is outside wanting to get in. And so let's see if we all agree these are the best practices we heard today, and please say no if you think so. First thing that attracts me is like convincing partners takes months. It does. It is very tiring. Get ready for that if you feel like joining a collaborative project. It is going to take many coughs. Just get that money and invite people for good lunches, okay? Get ready for that. Number 2, that's something Pauline suffered from. Get a cool memorandum. Write down everything you're going to have. Like, get everything really straight, clear, good sentences. Everyone needs to agree on everything. So once the project starts, everybody's on the same page, all right? Don't hesitate to be super clear. Nobody's going to be mad at you before the project starts, but once it's started, they might get mad at you. That was a... turn on the mic. Turn on the mic if you're off.
And that must be write it down and agree with them.
Yeah.
At least we don't work like you, so with the lawyers in a memorandum, write down, sign, because they were so expensive for all the provinces to go and come and etc. But at least an email saying formally, I agree with this.
Yes. Just think about all the rules, what can be done and what cannot be done, and how is this thing going to work.
Yeah.
All right? And then another cool idea that Yvonne brought, and I think it was wonderful, what about a technical committee? Like, what if 2 fact checkers have fact checked the same claim and get diverse tag, right? A classification that is not right. Who is the Supreme Court of the project? Maybe that's a technical committee, could be helpful in this situation. That is a very cool idea. A boot camp, it's interesting, right? Like, so everyone knows how the tools work, and everyone knows how to deal with all the techniques, how everyone is ready to debunk a video, debunk a photo, debunk a claim. So try to work that out. That might be expensive though, but get ready for that. I love Yvonne saying, you need to fix an output per partner. That is a very good idea. I never thought about that. And this is something that maybe projects suffer from, right? I don't know. Maybe there is one huge partner carrying the entire project, and you are that guy that wakes up at 6 a.m. and keeps working like until 2 a.m. for those that are not working so they have stuff to publish. Think about that. A pop-up newsroom could be really cool. I really believe it's also expensive to have somebody in the same room if you're doing some regional or continental thing and you're bringing people from Pakistan. Maybe it's going to be very expensive. But when journalists are together, just see how it works today, we're having fun, right? So, I mean, it works. It's pretty cool. So think about a pop-up newsroom. Another thing, choose one cool way to talk to your partners. Don't go Slacking, WhatsApping, Facebooking, emailing. Just pick the best one so people don't go crazy. Eh? And you don't go crazy.
General is the coordinator.
And I'm going to add something that is my like ping here. Remember, people go to sleep. Okay, just remember people sleep. They have lives. Even though you're under election, yeah, right, Natalia? People have their lives. Okay, yeah. What else? Consider the idea of having a full-time lawyer. That might be very important in some countries. Yeah, maybe that's not the situation in like super democracies, but maybe in some others it's important. What about liability? Right, that's an issue. Something else. Consider different levels of engagement. That's something Laura brought. I think you brought that too, right? You can have different levels of engagement. Maybe someone just don't want to write for your project, but maybe just want to publish whatever your project did. That is a good idea. Don't forget to have that on the memorandum, okay? And how to make stuff viral. Just sit down and talk to your partners. What are you going to do? So you have like the same voice, yeah, right? And then what's after? What are you going to do after? And then Pauline, we're going to talk about that for sure. I really think the collaboration, the best and coolest part of doing that is the day the election is over. And that's when you realize trust was built. Trust was built among partners. Yeah, of course you're going to fight with somebody. Of course you want to kill somebody, yeah, because the project is a stressing moment. But the minute the election is over, you realize that, yay, we have survived. And we are much closer. And we can do stuff together. And if something happens, like the Notre Dame fire happened, hey, we have a list of, let's work together, yeah? So I think I have this. And I think we can, you can comment on this if I'm missing something. And yeah, let's start with Mikko. He has a question, right? Can we have a microphone, like super quickly? I think we have like 10 minutes. If not, Baybars is going to kill me. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for...
Sorry, just adding one thing is also think about the different media, because in general, as fact checkers, we think writing, and if you are involving TV or radio or others, we have to, in the beginning and not after, think with them, how are you going to present this before starting?
All right, Mikko, super short, answer super short.
Thank you. Thanks for AFC and for convening. I think it's very important, and thanks for all the efforts that are important. But I think in the European scale, I would a little bit disagree with Pauline on was there mis and disinformation? There's awfully a lot of studies going on. We don't really know at the moment, but there was a serious threat, and there's a lot of studies, and I pretty much went through them, and we followed with a couple of people here from the beginning. But the thing is that where I see with a non-European project where you had a kind of clear leadership. In Europe, there were at least 5 networks working on that one. And this is something I would really love to see, that wouldn't happen again. Because in the end, in Brussels, the fact-checking was identified to an NGO called Avas that did a campaign on debunking some of the things that was actually valuable as such. But I mean, the fact-checking as we see it wasn't really in the big picture and all that. And we as a Faktabar, we participated 2 of the networks that in the end didn't contribute. And so on. So there is a really serious lessons. And I agree very much that the European elections are extremely important thing follow, because there is a lot at stake, at least from the disinformation point of view, for the future. So very good efforts. I mean, understandable from the reasonable. But this was really discussed quite early in the time. But I think it's very important to take the lessons learned and I mean, there is a good initiatives to kind of start with and kind of building on that one. So thanks for your efforts, but let's take it serious for the next round.
You want to comment, Pauline? Something?
No. I think
It's on?
it's working.
Yeah.
I didn't say there was no misinformation. I said it. It's not what I wanted to say. There was no viral hoaxes, as you could see in the previous national election. Like, there was no viral misinformation that, like, I'm not saying people didn't try to influence the election. I'm just saying there was nothing really big to check from a European point of view.
Yeah, but lack of that coordination, I think two serious things that we were missing some of the Central and Eastern European countries that were kind of out of all the pictures because that was a serious thing, because that's where the biggest threats were. And then the biggest winner of the thing was actually Facebook, that was able to say, thanks to third-party fact-checking, that we were everywhere. And you know, that was a huge PR stunt that they did in Brussels. Of course, there was a kind of, that's political. But in the end, they were able to say that the efforts were much more bigger than they were. And I think this is a very, very sensitive thing to take into consideration for the next round.
I like that. I like that question. I would ask that too. You want to ask something?
No, I just.
A mic? No, you're not taking my time. Get out. Mike, can you?
I did it's a conversation, but since we have like people here, I mean, probably this has been maybe addressed, but I really want to hear more from one of you.
Yeah. Take the mic because we're here live.
So so you all have participated in different collaboration activities, I mean, along with other fact-checking organizations under the IFCN umbrella, or maybe with others at a much broader journalistic scope. So, I mean, how can you prioritize the biggest benefit of collaborations for fact-checkers? It's the impact, or it's like the collaboration among the fact-checking organizations? So it's already a question that has been answered so far. I'm more than willing to, disappear, but if not, I will be more than happy to hear either,
You go, Giovanni.
Like the impact itself, or like the collaboration, so it's like more short-term impact, or like the long-term impact that you think
both.
more valuable?
What is the biggest achievement?
What's the point of doing
Yeah,
that?
why?
Yeah. So I would say that cooperation is a good thing per se, because it's one way of, it's the easiest way to know how, I don't know if this is
Yeah, it's working.
Okay. But, I don't think it's impact, seriously, because what we saw with Chequeado is it was a fantastic effort and it was very worth being part of it. But it's not that through that way, since we are doing such cool things, we are attracting big audiences. That for some reason doesn't happen. I don't know why, but maybe we should be more clever in promoting ourselves. Yeah. But I think that being part of cooperative efforts is a huge value per se, because you get to talk to each other on a constant basis. And it's not so much what you publish through the cooperation, that would probably be something that can come or also cannot come. But it's more that through that you can find other ways to do other things, like cooperating on different things, individual stories, taking technological tips or stuff like that, which is usually super helpful in enhancing your work.
I have a comment. I think there are many reasons. One is, for sure, for us, is to reach more people. Collaboration is a way to do that. We put together people that are in different bubbles, are not necessarily listening to the other. If we manage to create a network with that different actors, main actors of the different, at least in a polarization context, you need to get them both on board, first to know what are the real issues that the people are talking about, and to be working on that issues and not the issues that we believe they are talking about. That's one. And then it's one of the things is we need to know what the people cares about to check that also. And after that, we need that vehicles to arrive to the people that are not necessarily reading us. Then we are sure that there are people that are not entering each day in Chequeado or are not following us in the social network that perhaps start to follow up after this project because they know us by the working on Reverso. Then one is reach. The other is that we need to have more quality in journalism. And this is a way to get it. In Argentina, media made a lot of mistakes, sometimes because they are making clickbait, and sometimes because they don't even realize, and they don't have correction policy. They don't even got it. And then this project make and fix clear rules on if you made a mistake and someone noticed, you have a clear way to go out. And then we are finding a lot of media that thanks us. Okay, I don't even know how to do if I publish a picture that is from other country, they told us, for example. And we as fact checkers are surprised because we can't believe they don't know that. But in some cases, they don't know. Then to increase the quality of the environment in general, for me, is other important thing of this collaboration. And the third one is perhaps thinking on how stronger and bigger we can be if we create trust and benefits in this collaboration. If the most important TV channel realize that the people cares about these type of things, they are going to continue doing it. They are going to want or Chequeado or IFP or their own project doing this. Then I think there are at least that 3 reasons.
There is one thing Yvonne talked about that I would like to stress. It was just a short, tiny sentence she said. She said collaborating makes partners be safer.
Yeah.
That I would like her to explain that. You said in a dangerous situation, when you get together, you're stronger. That is so
Right.
That's from Philippines.
I mean, I'm going to be the bad guy here. I know people are supposed to be in other workshops.
Yeah,
So
we have to
just hear Yvonne. Just this last thing. Yeah, please. Be nice. Be nice.
Just that I'll answer what.
Is it on?
Yeah, it is on. What Babers asked. Individually, each partner has a wide reach. The biggest network, the biggest daily, they don't really need to come together if it's just for impact. But the collaboration, especially in an environment where media is under attack,
Yep.
where trust in the media is being eroded, coming together shows that we are willing to stand by the principles that bind us as fact checkers and as journalists. And I think this is one of the most effective ways to tell the people that we are willing to fight, right, disinformation and carry out our mission to seek and tell the truth.
This is number one.
Because that is our number one
Yeah.
goal as fact checkers and as journalists.
I love that sentence. Let's end with it. Perfect, Yvonne. Thank you very much. Thank you for those that are watching us on the website too, right? Back in the US and somewhere else. Thank you.